Divorce lawyers of Reddit. What is the most ridiculous reason your client filed divorce for? Divorce lawyer here. One client filed for divorce because he owed his bookie $70,000. He didn't want to leave his wife, but he figured he would get half the house in the divorce, which was worth $700,000, and pay his debts. He had already blew through their life savings gambling. He was the worst guy. There are better ways to tap home equity than getting divorced. I heard of a woman that had her marriage annulled because the groom insisted to bring his mother on their honeymoon. Then, on the honeymoon, the bride discovered the reason he wanted to bring his mother was to breastfeed him. Yes, the groom. I had two couples come to me. They had been friends for nigh on 15 years. Husband A decided he liked wife B more than wife A. Wife A decided she likes husband B more than husband A. The reverse was also true. And husband B preferred wife A. Wife B preferred husband A. The couples had near identical assets in terms of value. They came to me all together, and I drafted 2 sets of paperwork. 2 default judgment hearings were set on the same day. The judge signed all the papers the same day. A week after that, they all went to a JP and remarried. The husbands swapped houses and they all went about their lives exactly as they had the week before, but each slightly happier. Edit. No. This was not Roblo or a picture in the 1970s. I'm only 34. No. I have never read, seen, or heard of Marmalade Boy before today. But I will look for it to read next weekend. No. I probably don't live or work in your state. He loved his pinball machine collection more than her. Also, it turns out some pinball machines can be worth a shitload of money. Not me, but my friend who specializes in family law. Wife wanted to divorce husband because he kept taking their dogs for walks while she was at work, making it, unintentionally, so they'd rather cuddle the husband instead of her after a long day. I'm not a divorce lawyer, but this case appeared in one of my case books in law school. Beidou v Bloods Raku. Basically, a couple got married but never lived together. Shortly after marriage, the husband dropped off the face of the earth and the wife had no way of contacting him. She didn't know any of his family, and apparently the place he told her he worked at never heard of him. He disconnected his cell phone and she even hired a private detective to try and locate him with no success. Finally, she tried to file for divorce, for obvious reasons, but for service to be considered valid, the defendant has to be physically handed service papers. Since she couldn't find out where he was, she couldn't even get divorced from him. She had to sue in court just to get permission from a judge to allow service through Facebook, because that was literally the only means she had of contacting her husband. She was a super coupon clipper thrifty lady and would listen when he went to the bathroom to see if he was using too much TP. My neighbor filed for divorce because he smacked his lips when he ate and slurped his coffee and soup. She thought if she didn't, she would end up in jail for battery. My co-worker does this when he eats anything. He's 26 years old and he's been called on it several times. Chew with your damn mouth shut. I've had to remind myself to stay professional when he does that. Being married to someone who slurps all the time would be torture. Not a divorce lawyer, but have done marriage therapy. Had a soldier stationed at Guantanamo Bay that met a local. Fell madly in love. They decided to get married so she could come with him back in the States once his tour was done. She was working on American dishes and was making spaghetti. He comes home from work one day and she's making it. She puts the meat in, puts the canned sauce in, and then pulls an unlabeled bag out of the freezer and adds it to the sauce. At this point in the session, she's hysterically crying with broken Spanglish. She's trying to explain she didn't know any better. Through the hysteria, he informs me her mother and grandmother told her if she wanted to keep her man, she needed to put her menstrual blood in his food. It was so hard to keep my composure. I was trying too hard not to gag. They both described they were madly in love, but he couldn't let it go. They ended up getting a divorce. Having done this for 14 years, I have found it 100% accurate that truth is stranger than fiction. I had a client file for divorce because every morning his wife would ask him how he takes his coffee, for 7 years. He was still living with his mom. My brother is on wife number 2. He still lives with mother. My mother-in-law divorced my father-in-law so she could have a fresh start with her dream job of teaching blind children to read. Turns out, what she meant by that was destroy my father-in-law's pastor career by telling everyone he was abusive. Got married to the guy she'd secretly been carrying on with. He's a convicted child sex offender. She has grandchildren. She's in a state of complete denial. My dad split my mom because she takes too long to tell a story. He was actually having affair number 4,795,809,374 and that came out shortly after. But this was one of the main reasons he gave when they did a counseling session together. Not a lawyer but a friend is. They said the husband wanted a divorce because the wife still wiped the ears of the perfectly healthy and mentally able teenage son among other things. Lawyer here. One of mine that sticks out is that the husband and wife both played some sort of online role-playing game. Sort of like The Sims I think, but a little more elaborate and adult. Second Life maybe? I don't know anything about online games. The wife got heavily involved with the game. Like 10 hours a day. And wouldn't reduce her time playing no matter what he said. What tipped things over the edge however was that he set up a fake profile avatar and went online to stalk her in the game and found her avatar having sex with some random guy's avatar. Nothing ever happened in real life. Neither of them were exactly oil paintings to look at, but that was enough for the guy to initiate a very acrimonious divorce. Not a divorce lawyer, but was told of a client that filed for divorce with his wife because she kept eating his food. Joey doesn't share food. Lol, I actually created this post because of a friend's episode. Client said her husband was dealing meth. Well, technically cooking meth. Oh shit. That shit is ducking dangerous. I knew someone who lost a family member when their meth lab exploded and caught their house on fire. Not so fun fact, the town I used to live in had people bringing backpack meth labs into places like McDonald's and the hospitals. Plus they'd drive down the freeway dripping their chemical waste or whatever you call it out of barrels and enclosed trailers so they could dispose of it without getting caught. People who cook meth give zero ducks apparently. Assholes. Edit. The person cooking the meth was the one who died in the house fire. Edit 2. Okay, it's a not so fun fact. Not a divorce lawyer. One couple that I am close to were in the process of filing for divorce. Papers were served and lawyers were involved. But the husband put down for one of his reasons why things were irreconcilable was because she would cheat in his bathroom. I'm sure not exactly in those words. Happy to say that they worked through that issue and are still together. So husband and I are planning on building a house. We're looking at layouts. His mother pipes up that the plan we want is no good as it only has one bathroom and she doesn't want to share when she comes to visit. Serious. She wanted her own bathroom in someone else's house and said it like 3 times. Newsflash. She ain't coming to visit. Not an attorney but a paralegal. This isn't why they filed. But the guy didn't think his wife should be able to divorce him because she had Lyme's disease. He thought that having had this impaired her mental facilities and therefore she was not in her right mind to make this decision. We were just the gal for the kids. So every so often we would get calls from him going on and on about this. Not a lawyer. But 2 stories. Wife wanted to divorce her husband on their wedding day because he fought with her father over the bill. Another was a woman who divorced her husband of a week because she's been in love with someone else for several months and found out the other guy loved her too. They are married and have a kid together now. Not a lawyer. But a friend of mine divorced her husband because his big dig was too big. They were dating about 6 months. Got a courthouse wedding and separated about 6 months after. She said it was fun at first but the 6 became too much work. She said it took a lot of preparation. Apparently. As well. He was pushing for some bad stuff. When she first told me offhand, I refused to believe it. She showed me a picture of them dancing at their reception and holy shit was this guy packing heat. A friend of the family got divorced by her husband because she couldn't outperform him on the golf course. We all think he was cheating and just wanted an excuse, but she did say he would often yell at her in public while golfing and mock her for her attention to detail, whatever the duck that means in golf. He would also force the family to go golfing on most weekends, so it's hard to say if that was the real reason or not. She doesn't even like golf but was, and still is, afraid to tell him that. My dad has been married several times, more than 4. His last wife asked him to rub her feet and he said no. She told him to get the FCK out. He was super excited and said okay bye. You will hear from my attorney. Obviously that was the straw that broke the camel's back. Makes me laugh every time someone asks why did they split up. No feet rub for you. Not a lawyer. In my 20s, back in the 80s, I met a friend's friend who married and ended those marriages, not sure how, divorce or annulment, for fancy parties, wedding receptions, money gifts, wedding gifts, and vacations, honeymoons. She would get married and immediately upon return from the honeymoon, end the marriage and off to find the next guy. In the 7 years or so that I knew of her, she'd been married 4 times. Hopefully soon to be former divorce attorney. I've seen tons of crazy reasons for people to get divorced. Some of them stupid. Some of them make perfect sense. I had one person get divorced because her husband wouldn't take her out to the movies anymore. I had one client who looked through her husband's phone and found out he was hiring male escorts while he was on business trips. One female client got a divorce because she hated sex with her husband. Her last relationship before she got married was pretty intense and I guess her husband just didn't match up. I've had a few clients who were teachers get divorced because their spouses found out they were having indecent relationships with students. All of the teachers were female. One divorce involved an elderly couple who had both recently been widowed. They had both been married to their individual spouses for over 40 years. They married each other out of loneliness. About 2 years into the marriage, they realized they made a huge mistake. They couldn't stand each other. It was weird seeing 80-year-olds complaining about the same thing you see kids arguing about. My wife divorced me because I had her arrested for domestic assault. She's in childcare, so it was absolutely imperative that she controlled the narrative. Apparently I am a liar. The cops are liars. The children are liars. The baby mashed itself over my back. The video of her doing these things are also lying. So divorced I got for hanging out with all these liars. She refused to allow her son to see a movie because her husband wanted him to go to said movie. He took their son to see the movie anyway. My dad's a divorce lawyer. The mom took their kid to Central South America. The dad was kept out of the loop. That's not a ridiculous reason at all. That's a very good reason to divorce someone. I once had a woman that wanted to contest a divorce filing. The husband filed an uncontested divorce and forged her signature. We sought to vacate the divorce. The weird thing is, there were no children or assets to be divided, and she wanted to be divorced from him. Yet she insisted the divorce be vacated and the process be started over again and done properly, even though in the end everything would be the same and she will just have expended more money. Not a divorce lawyer, but I read about a divorce on a weird but true site where some guy insisted on a divorce because his wife fed him pumpkins instead of a more expensive counterpart. Easy. She spent $42,000 on psychic hotlines. Notable. She then wouldn't accept any of our offers. And I continuously asked her lawyer to provide counter offers. Shouldn't her psychic have told her how the case would turn out? ? Lol. Not really what you are asking. But my sister's old friend had a big wedding and about a month later she accidentally but dialed her husband while she was out to dinner with the dude she's been sleeping with. Seemed like an act of God. Not a lawyer, but one of the reasons my mom gave my dad on why they needed a divorce was that he bought expensive shampoo. Husband and wife were married for 15 years. And husband started being less and less intimate with wife. He cheated on her with another woman. And his rationale was that he didn't know if he was impotent or it was just his wife and wanted to find out. I guess I'm late to this one. It was my associate's case. But he had a couple in his office arguing about all the things they disliked about each other. All of a sudden the husband started screaming at the wife about leaving sheet stains in the toilet. It was the reason. But it was hilarious. Wife was having an affair and husband killed the boyfriend. Life in prison for premeditated murder. Then they got divorced. I'm not saying he should kill anyone. But she deserves it more than the guy. The guy didn't cheat on him. She did. I always kind of wonder why people are more upset with a random person than they're so. They could easily be lying and saying they're single. Your so knows what they're doing. One of the two had a problem with the IRS. Divorcing would shield some assets, as long as they were awarded to the other party in the divorce. I don't know how it was supposed to shield assets. And client said they lived apart a lot. I didn't want to look into it too deep, in case I ended up in some sort of fraud. I made client give me enough info that it was plausible they could divorce. Also, there were the airline pilots in the news a while back that were about to lose some of their pension. But if they got divorced, their ex wouldn't lose the benefits. Turns out that marriage fraud is a thing. But divorce fraud isn't. They gave their spouse the retirement, but stayed together like they were still married. Brilliant. My friend told me about a situation where the wife was fed up with the husband spending too much time with his dog. I'm the product of a divorce. My parents finished who got my brother and I in 6 months. It took them 3 years to decide who got the cats. Not sure if that's what you were looking for though. So who got the cats? My mom, since we lived with her. Not a lawyer, but my great grandfather, who died after 3 wives, had married his second wife the day he was to sign divorce papers with the first. Great guy. Not a lawyer, but heard a story of a couple getting divorced because flecks of spit would land on each other's face whenever they argued. Maybe it's mentioned here.